Okay. Patrick and Ada, are y'all ready? Text me or chat me if not. Well, gosh, we've got great turnout today. This is fantastic. Welcome to a Q&A and info session with some of our local funders. For those of y'all who don't know me, I'm Abby Garrison. I'm the new Vice President of Venture Forward here at United Way. Sorry, I was reading chats for a second, got distracted. So I just started, gosh, about a month ago, and am so excited to be a part of this team. And pretty quickly, we are trying to just be really responsive to some of the needs that are coming up for you guys in response to COVID-19. And you know, the whole point of Venture Forward is for us to be here to kind of just spark innovation and new ideas and problem solving in the nonprofit community, as well as supporting you guys in just doing what you do every day, supporting our community. So that is why we are trying to pretty quickly roll out several webinars and weekly offerings to help support you guys in this really kind of interesting time. Just for a couple of housekeeping things, we have on our website, ventureforwardnow.org, there are quite a bit of other upcoming webinars and virtual offerings that are listed. We encourage you guys to check those out. We're trying to get caught up, but we're going to be looking to publish those a couple weeks in advance within the next couple of weeks. But right now we're still building it, so bear with us as we roll those out. And then along those same lines, we've also suspended membership fees for the next 3 months. And we're really just doing that so that more nonprofits and more nonprofit leaders here locally can take advantage of the different tools and resources that we're pulling together through this crisis. So definitely, if you're not a member yet, take this opportunity to sign up. As I said, it's free, and it will certainly give you access to lots of resources that you might not otherwise have. Last housekeeping thing, if you would pull your chat up and use the chats to ask questions. We'll be kind of accumulating those, and then we'll circle back around to them with the speakers today. And then other thing is that this webinar, we are going to record it just so that for people who missed it, they'll be able to access it after the fact. We don't have like slides or anything in particular. It's all just going to be kind of verbal. So, you know, feel free to take notes or to rewatch the recording after the fact. So, oh, and I see also Patrick's had up there the COVID-19 resource page we have. Definitely check that out. We have lots of resources that are specific for the nonprofit sector here in Chattanooga on our webpage. So along those lines, let's get started. I wanted to just briefly introduce and let you guys know who all we have on the call. And I'm going to let them tell you more about their individual organizations, many of which you probably are already familiar with, but I just always find it useful to hear from the horse's mouth. But we have Robin Posey with the Community Foundation of Greater Chattanooga. We have Maria Matthews with the Generosity Trust based here in Chattanooga. And then we also have Dominique Shaw, who is part of United Way, who's over the impact area at United Way. So each of these three organizations has very quickly and very responsively turned around some new funding opportunities in response to COVID. So I just wanted to turn it over to them and let them each tell you a little bit about their organization's response from a funding standpoint, and then we'll do Q&A as well. So either put questions in the chat or take notes, but I think the chat is probably the best option for that. So with that, I think we will start with, I'm looking at Robin, lucky Robin. She's on my screen, so we'll start with Robin first.
Thanks, Abby. Thank you for pulling this together. I know we're getting lots of questions from folks, so it's great that you guys are letting us reach lots of people at once. Community Foundation has a couple of funding mechanisms right now, and so there's lots of questions out there, and I'll be happy to answer any of those, but I want to profile each of those for you, and hopefully that'll answer some of the questions right off the top. When, I guess it was really when schools closed and we realized, okay, things are gonna get a little unusual for a little bit, we took some initial steps to try and be the best funding partner that we could be. One of those steps was recognizing that some of our grantees from last cycle may have had grants that could be put on the back burner, or projects that could be put on the back burner, and what would be most helpful at the current moment would be to transition those grants into general operating support. So we have done that for our current grantees that have requested that, and would do that for any of our other grantees if they needed it. The other thing that we realized is that while we were in the midst of preparing for a typical capacity building cycle, that what really was needed right now is general operating grants, and that's the shift that we made. So what we have said is, as opposed to our typical priority areas, we are going to be focusing on those organizations that are really on the front line of the response to COVID-19 and serving our community, primarily meeting basic needs. And we're going to operate with a grant cycle that is providing $15,000 general operating grants for that purpose. The other feedback that we've heard through the sector is that we need to make sure that we're not pulling back on the level of funding that we're providing because of the downturn in the markets. And thankfully, we already had a policy in place that bases our funding on a 12-quarter average. So while we will feel this eventually in the funds that we're able to distribute, it's not going to be a this year thing or a next year thing. It'll lag a little bit before that really is impacted. And then the last thing that we decided is, while we're going to provide funding for these frontline organizations initially, we recognize that all of our nonprofit partners are going to have needs that emerge as a result of this, and they're going to need to have assistance in that recovery phase. And so we're going to be working with the Chattanooga Nonprofit Alliance that has been formed as a result of this crisis to figure out what that recovery could look like and the type of investments that we could make in our nonprofits that serve all parts of our community, not just our social sector. That's under formation, so I don't have a lot of information on that yet, but what we're talking about is, while we typically would have had 2 capacity building cycles, or had planned on 2 capacity building cycles this year, the first one is going to be direct response to the community need, and then the second is going to be helping those nonprofits. And if you can hear my 3-year-old in the background, I apologize. I think she woke up upset from a nap, and hopefully the sitter is on her way. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing in terms of our interest in the community efforts through what would have been our capacity building cycle. We are really looking for, like I said, those frontline organizations specifically that are addressing basic human needs, food and shelter. We're also looking at organizations that are assisting with access to medical care and mental health services, organizations providing access to child care, and then organizations that are helping with income supports. We've deployed additional funding for this cycle, but we don't have terribly much more than we did or we're planning on having. And so these opportunities are fairly limited for the $15,000 general operating grants. So we're asking that those organizations that are well suited, please apply. I will provide an email address in the chat box when this is over for a new colleague of ours who is going to be chatting with anybody that's interested in applying after this session. The deadline is Friday, so by close of business Friday, but she will be chatting with folks, and as long as they're aligned, we're going to take them through the process. Given that we don't have a terrible unlimited amount of funding, we want to make sure it's that those organizations that are most closely aligned are the ones that are taking advantage of that application opportunity. If you are not, but you know of an organization that is, I would ask that you please pass this opportunity along to them. Also, if there are groups of individuals that are taking on this work that aren't formalized 501c3 organizations, we are happy to help them identify potential fiscal sponsorship. That could be with churches, that could be with other organizations that are working in this space, and we can support efforts in that way as well. So that's the first process that we have, which is was going to be our capacity building. The other thing that we did when the kind of the crisis arose was we established the Community Response and Resilience Fund and started fundraising with our donors and with our institutional partners, such as other foundations and corporations, to raise money to really support those organizations that are on the front lines, that are supporting the economic impact of this on families, as well as those basic human needs. We have raised about $1 million to this point, and today they met, and as of today have deployed about half of that to 14 organizations. These requests are solicited, so it's our committee, that is a group of community members that represents cross sections of the community, both individuals on the ground and individuals that represent healthcare and government, coming together and bringing opportunities for us to consider. It's also just us as a staff and our relationships with those frontline organizations from the past, having conversations with them about what those needs look like. So there's not a formal application process. It's really by invitation, but it is designed to really mitigate those financial impacts, hopefully quickly, so that we don't become, have individuals become in a chronic situation where they're needing support as a result of this crisis. So that's kind of the two funding arms that we have and what we've done so far to address, and a little preview of what we hope to do going forward.
Thank you, Robin. That was a really great overview, very helpful. I am going to say, just because I realize how many people are on this call now, there's 120. If you have specific questions, it would be really helpful as we go if you would put them in the chat. And then I'll kind of manage asking them back to the three panelists, only because I think if 120 of us start trying to chime in, it's going to get kind of complicated. So anyway, thank you, Robin. Let's move on to Maria Matthews with Generosity Trust. Would you like to share with us about your COVID response fund?
I would, but first I want to give you a little background on the Generosity Trust. We are a faith-based community foundation that empowers Christian generosity. We're a nonprofit ourselves, a donor-driven foundation. Donors give to us, get a tax deduction right away, then make grants out at their own pace to nonprofits, churches, ministries, schools, and universities. Over the last 3 weeks since COVID struck, we have made 35 COVID-related grants through our normal processes, and those total just under $200,000. And we've seen our donors truly just stepping up to the plate. They are involved with organizations across the community, and they know that so many have had to cancel spring fundraising events, and they have just really tried to help fill the gap. So we have now started a brand new fund called Generosity COVID-19 to help frontline Christian ministries with new demands related specifically to COVID. As y'all know, you're seeing your expenses double and triple with all of the ripple effects that are happening related to this virus. So these grants will be specifically to help ministries on the front line who are reaching out to families and individuals facing loss of income, food insecurity, and health issues. Right now, the fund is close to $50,000. It's growing daily. We're beginning to make grants at the end of this week, and they'll be made on a rolling basis. And it's just really simple to apply. We want it to be just a one-page letter of intent with the description of your new needs that are directly related to COVID, the amount of the request, and we're suggesting up to 5,000, that range, your ministry and its impact, and the desired outcome of the grant. And all you have to do is just email that letter to james@thegenerositytrust.org. This information is also on our website, and 100% of the dollars raised through generosity will go directly to these grants to impact frontline ministries.
And Maria, are those grants more for operational needs of the churches, or are they purely for kind of, not pass-through is not the right word, but for the ministry work that the church does in the community?
Well, we're actually focusing on frontline ministries, not necessarily churches. And it's any new demand, anything that's come up because of the outreach for COVID. So really, churches have their own benevolence funds. Of course, I know they're suffering too, but right now this is focused on ministries.
Okay, thank you, Maria.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I just took executive license and asked my own question.
Well, that was great. Thank you.
Okay, now we are going to transition to discussing the United Way Fund. Dominique, are you on the line and ready? Dominique Brandt, I should say. Oh my gosh, I called her by the wrong name earlier.
That's okay. I answer to a lot of things, Abby.
I still go by my maiden name sometimes. I mean, whatever. Sorry.
Well, hi, everybody. So United Way has stood up a fund called Restore Hope, and it's a little bit different from what the Community Foundation and the Generosity, I really like that, Maria, is doing, where they're supporting more of the organizations, which is great because all the organizations need it. We are focused on helping individuals. So these would be our Alice families and our families in poverty that have lost wages or have completely lost jobs because of COVID-19. So we have a fund. It is a little over $100,000 as of Friday, but I know money came over the weekend, so I'm not exactly sure where it is today yet. Some of the gifts are from individuals, some are their larger gifts from funders in the community. And the way we are working this is we will not fund an individual directly, but we're working currently with 8 agencies, and we've got several that are, that are coming online. Currently, we're working with the Boys and Girls Club, with La Paz, with the Partnership, Signal Centers, the Jewish Federation, Northside Neighborhood House, Rockbridge Church in Cochise County, and the Bethlehem Center. And we are looking again to add a couple of agencies that are working in other areas of the community. So the agencies have all been selected because they have proven capacity in the community, and they've been selected very specifically for geographic areas and for audiences served. So Latinx community, undocumented, persons with disabilities, that kind of thing. So the individuals can go to any of these organizations. They can go either directly to them, or 211 can refer them, or someone else can refer them, and they can get up to $750 of support. It can be for multiple bills, so it could be rent and electric and water, whatever combination. We're also allowing internet, which is not something we normally do with our Neediest Cases Fund. This is structured sort of like that, but we understand that internet has become a reality for students and for many people to work, so that is included as well. And it is one-time assistance, and it's a very simple process. There is not a lot of paperwork, and the way we have structured this is we have placed dollars, basically advances, with these agencies so that the turnaround is very quickly in how these bills are paid. The idea is to put the dollars into the community as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you, Dominique, for sharing. We actually got a question in real time in the chats right now. Is United Way only for families already in the 211 system, or can, for instance, a hygienist who's lost her job also apply?
Yeah, absolutely. It is not just for people that are in the 211 system. As a matter of fact, we are partnering with agencies that are not traditionally funded by United Way. This is not about United Way. This is not about the agencies that we've traditionally worked with for many, many years. This is about the individuals in the community who have lost wages or have lost jobs. So you don't have to have completely lost your job. You could have just lost some of the wages, major cutbacks, things like that. So there's a variety of different factors. But yeah, we're trying to drop every barrier possible to serve as many as we can.
Thanks, Dominique. I think one thing that we had talked about at the Nonprofit Alliance was, which I should answer that question, which is in the chat as well. The Nonprofit Alliance is a kind of an informal alliance, if you will. It's not an actual entity by any means, of just local nonprofits coming together, trying to share resources, share notes, just kind of navigate this new normal, if you will, as we go through COVID. So I think Patrick dropped it up in the chat earlier, but anybody is welcome to join that. Kim Schumpert with the CWLI is organizing bi-weekly Zoom calls where people can get together and ask questions and just, figure out what's next. I would highly recommend you guys jump on that. It's a good group. But again, it's informal. It's not anything like set in stone that's necessarily, its own organization by any means. It's just a response to the COVID crisis. So one of the things we were talking about on that call though recently was, are there things that funders are kind of, and maybe this is more for Robin or Maria, funders would expect nonprofits to do as far as like tightening up their financials in any way before applying for any kind of relief? Or is that not even on the table because it's just kind of crisis mode?
I think I think we recognize that right now everybody's going to have financial constraints that they didn't have a month ago. And so for us, we would be less worried about that. And once we hit this recovery phase, that's what it's about. And there wouldn't be, now, I'm not going to say that they're not going to be looking at financials at all. And if an organization is beyond the point of return, then they may take that into consideration before making funding decisions. But we recognize that everybody's in a tight space and nobody's books are going to look great right now. And that would not preclude someone from applying or receiving a grant through Community Foundation.
We're basically the same. We're just know that it's a crisis mode right now, and a lot of people are just bending over backwards to help the people that they normally serve, and the demands are rising, and so that's what this fund is there for.
Great, thank you. From your perspective as funders, are there specific like gaps or holes in our COVID response locally that you would like to see us address as a community, like as opposed to the way other communities might be responding? I know you guys kind of have a 10,000-foot view sometimes.
I think one of the things that we're noticing is the need for organizations that are working towards the same end to be in strong communication with one another right now. We've had a couple discussions about this today, in that just these times call for coordination. And while oftentimes we talk about nonprofits working in silos, and sometimes it's the case and sometimes it isn't, but now more than ever, I think it's important for organizations that are aligned and doing similar to work to be working with one another and alongside one another and complementing one another's work, as opposed to the scarcity mindset that it's so easy to get into, and really just being more concerned about maintaining an organization's identity and donors and all those types of things.
And for us, we know that there are several of our alpha funds that are out there working hard. Alpha funds are organizations that come underneath our umbrella as they are qualifying for their 501c3. One in particular is Kingdom Partners, and they are really working with inner city churches right now, helping them with their technology needs. And we know that people are really networking, as Chattanooga always does, and just appreciate the ongoing partnerships that we've seen.
Okay, we all are being quiet in the chats. I guess I will open it up to if anybody wants to unmute and ask them a question directly. Feel free. This is a quiet group of 122 people.
This is Vicky with the Urban League. United Way indicated that they are helping families who are in need at this moment. So my question is, well, I had a couple of questions. Is your updated list of agencies going to be on your website? If so, when? And if a family has received funds, let's say in the last 90 days, are they still eligible, or will those kind of considerations be applied?
Those are excellent questions. The agencies are on the website already, and as we bring other agencies online, they will be added to the website. That's unitedwaycha.org, and there's a banner across the top that says COVID-19 response, and if you just click on that, it will take you to all of the work that we're doing around COVID-19. This fund, the Restore Hope Fund, is new and it's unique, and whatever someone else has received, whether it's through neediest cases or some other kind of support, will not impact their ability to receive funding or support through the Restore Hope Fund. The only big requirement is that they have to be impacted by COVID-19.
Thank you.
There's a great question in the chat right now asking, I guess each of you really, what your footprint is. Is it just Chattanooga, or will you be expanding, or have you expanded?
The Generosity Trust has grants all over the country. Last year, we funded 1,000 organizations in the Chattanooga area. I'm sure that will expand with the need growing and growing. Overall, throughout the country, we gave 6,800 grants.
And for the general operating grants, as well as the Community Response and Resilience Fund, those are focused on Hamilton County. Obviously, similarly to the Generosity Trust, we have donors that give across the country, but these funds are focused in Hamilton County.
Our funding is in Hamilton County, Ray County. We already have a partner. We have a partner in Catoosa, and we're working on Walker and Dade County right now, and Marion and Sequatchie. That's the 6 counties that we normally serve, and so we're working on getting partners there as well.
Thanks, ladies. So then another question, what are the expected turnaround times on these grants? We can just go in the same order.
Okay. Ours begin probably on Friday of this week. The decisions will be made from the grants committee, and they will then be processed the next Tuesday and hopefully in everyone's hands the next week. And then they're going to be ongoing. We're hoping that this $50,000 will grow exponentially and that this will continue throughout the spring. So we're encouraging folks to send that letter of intent.
So our grant deadline for Friday, which is the general operating grants, we don't have a firm turnaround time on that. Our goal is May. Initially, it would have been end of June, but we recognize those funds are needed quickly. We also recognize that it's going to take time to get through all of those requests. And then in terms of the Community Response and Resilience Fund, we consider those on a weekly basis. Our committee meets weekly and is turning those around weekly.
Our turnaround time is probably 48 hours, possibly maybe 72. It depends how quickly our partner agencies get us the information and all the paperwork is complete, which is not a lot. As I said, we have put dollars into their hands already, so they're able to cut the checks very quickly. We've received about 20 applications since Wednesday, and we've fully processed that. Dollars are already out, 3, and then all of the others are in process.
Thanks, Dominique. Maria, I think this question is specifically for you, but do you have to partner with the church to qualify for the funding from the Generosity Trust?
No, it can be a standalone ministry. And it depends on your charter and what your mission is. But you don't have to be in partnership with a church, but you can be, as long as it's a separate entity. Your organization is a separate entity.
Okay, thank you. And then Robin, if an organization receives a response and resilience grant, are they still able to apply for the later grant cycle this year?
Yes, so response and resilience grant, you would still be eligible to apply for the general operating grants, and then potentially for the recovery grants that will come online later this year, although we don't know exactly what form that's going to take at this point. But no restrictions on not being able to apply if you've already received funds this year.
Great. Okay, and one last question for Maria. Are your grants limited to Protestant ministries only, or would Catholic ministries also apply?
It's Christian ministries, Christian frontline ministry. So Catholic, all denominations.
Great, good clarification. And then someone asked a question about Shelby County, but we will have to follow up with you directly, because all of these resources, generally speaking, are focused on Chattanooga. I guess, Maria, maybe you're the possible exception to that, right? Okay. Well, okay.
Just to clarify, sorry, Abby,
Yep.
the generosity grants are Chattanooga area only. Generosity grants. Yeah.
Okay, that is a good clarification. Generally, the Generosity Trust operates lots of different places, but your
That's
current COVID-focused one is Chattanooga only.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, well, like I said, we have recorded this. We also have all of your information from logging in. So we'll be sending a follow-up email to this. Ladies, is it okay if we share your contact information if someone needs to get in touch with you? Totally putting you on the spot, sorry.
So I've put Rebecca Gauger's information in the chat box, and then just for the remainder of this week, it would be great to reach out to her. I'm going to be with my kiddos for a little bit, and so I want to make sure we get a timely response to folks. But after this week, of course, you can reach back out to me.
Great, wonderful. Well, we will do that. We will communicate that out to you guys, and we're going to be efficient and not take up any more of your time than we already have. But obviously, if more questions come up, you'll have people's contact information to reach out to them. And we hope that this was helpful. So shoot us an email if there's anything else that you need us to follow up on Venture Forward's behalf after this. Oh my gosh, there's so many chats coming through. Wow. Okay, so this was great. We will talk to you all soon. Thank you.
Okay.
Wow.